Alrighty, good evening. Today I'm reviewing The Kingdom of Ice by Hampton Sides. This is the first book I've read of Hampton Sides. I'm now completely motivated to read more of his books because the first thing I will say about this book, The Kingdom of Ice, or Into the Kingdom of Ice, is that it is an incredible story. And the best part about it is it's nonfiction, so it's a real story. I'm assuming everything, I'm sure he had to fill in the gaps here and there, but everything that happened in this book happened in real life, happened in the late 1800s. Basically, to grossly oversimplify it, it is a Arctic expedition that went to try and get to the North Pole, because in the late 1800s, no one had been to the North Pole yet. They didn't know what was up there. So, Captain DeLong on the USS Jeannette and his crew went to go and try and get to the North Pole. It was America's first big mission, I would say, other than claiming independence, of course. But they wanted to put themselves on the map and be the ones to get to the North Pole. Before the space race, there was kind of a race to get to the North Pole, so that's what motivated this journey, and just for exploration. Because just imagine, nowadays everything on Earth is explored for the most part. We've been to all areas of the planet. So there's nothing to explore anymore. So the excitement of, oh, no one's ever been here before. We have no idea what's there. That's not really there for us anymore in the 21st century, but for them, that was still there. They had no idea what was in the North Pole. And that's one part that makes this book so exciting, is because although we know what's in the North Pole now, for the most part, they didn't. And the author makes that very clear. And listening to them get excited and theorize about what could have been up there and stuff, it makes you, the reader, excited too for them, because they had so many theories, so many cool things that they thought could be up there, and unfortunately, it's just ice. But they had theories that there was a hole to the center of the Earth. There was an open polar sea, was the main theory, of warm water. That once you got to the North Pole, it was actually warm and not cold. Anyways, as you can tell, I'm excited about talking about this because it was just so interesting. But it's also a very emotional and sad story as well. Unlike the Endurance, I don't know if you're into polar expeditions, I'm sure you've heard of Ernest Shackleton's The Endurance. My favorite story, nonfiction story. No one dies on that journey, and which is why it's one of the most incredible tales of leadership and survival ever. Unfortunately, with the USS Jeannette Into the Kingdom of Ice, people do die. Not everyone survives the journey. Obviously, not going to spoil it, even though it happened 200 years ago. But I didn't have it spoiled. No one really knows this story unless you read the book. But people do die. And at the end of the book, I was almost in tears. I really was. It's hard to admit that, but for the first time reading a book in a very long time, I was actually almost in tears. It was very sad. And it's just so interesting because this took place over a century ago. And the first third of the book, roughly, I would say probably the first third, is all about the history of the characters, their lives, what they were doing in the late 1800s. So the first third of it's kind of like a history lesson as to everything that was going on in America, and with the exploring the North Pole and everything like that, and just deep, rich histories of the characters involved and the people who played important roles in the journey of the USS Jeannette. It's very interesting. I feel like maybe some people could get a little bored in the beginning of the book because it's not actually them on the journey, it's them preparing for it and, giving histories and stuff like that, and little details that had to do with the voyage but weren't about it. So I can see how some people could get bored with that. I certainly was not bored with it. I found it all very entertaining. And it's written so well. It's written, you have so many quotes from their journals in here and stuff, but Hampton Sides really he puts it all together so well, writes it like it's fiction almost. It feels like you're reading a fiction book, cause it's just so smooth, so many gaps filled, so informatively, and it's just really well put together and a great, incredible story. Reading stories like this, especially since they're real, they're nonfiction, it really helps put in perspective how hard men have pushed themselves before, and how much they've suffered, and what extremes men are capable of surviving in and pushing themselves to get through. It's really incredible. It's extremely inspiring. Even though people do end up dying and it's heartbreaking, it's also extremely inspiring. It kind of lights a fire inside you. It kind of reminds you what human beings are capable of and what we used to do in the name of courageous exploration and in the name of making our country proud. It's a very good lesson. This book really is incredible. I was engrossed the entire way. I never really got bored. There was maybe like one chapter in the beginning that I got a little bored, but other than that, I was completely captivated. I was hesitant to pick up this book because it was so big. It's over 400 pages long, and the words are small. So it is, for me at least, it was a long read, but it was entirely worth it. I highly recommend this book to anyone. If you're watching this video because you're curious about whether you want to get it, I highly recommend it. A great book, very well written, keeps you at the edge of your seat. You're always wanting to know what happens next, and just the way he describes the polar, it's so beautiful up there too. I've never been up there, but I can tell it is from what the details in this book and what the men said about it. Inspiring, heartbreaking, heartwarming. Listening to how the wives used to write notes to their husbands. The way people used to talk to each other was so romantic. It was so filled with passion and love. It's not like that anymore, unfortunately. And that's one thing that's sad. It's not, people don't talk to each other, or at least most people don't talk to each other the way people used to talk to each other and write notes to each other and stuff. Everything was full of passion. Now it's kind of a bit bland. That's our fault though, of course. But yeah, just really interesting to step into the world of one of the most courageous and enduring adventures out there. And the fact that it took place in the late 1800s it's incredible. I highly recommend this book. Hampton Sides, Into the Kingdom of Ice. I actually got this book from my father, so I didn't order it online. I'm assuming you can get it on Amazon though. But yeah, I highly recommend it. Thanks for listening to the review. Have a great day.